Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one prop stream for the US Open. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure tomorrow. With first off, a look at the weather conditions, how that'll impact Thursday. We'll talk through stat averages from what we had in 2016, exactly how they should line up here in 2025, or at least get a good idea of maybe what we should see tomorrow. Still, a little bit up in the air when it comes to those conditions. And then, of course, how I'm attacking these different prop boards, which we'll be going through the prop side of things on the sports books, also talking about how you can attack in Underdog and Prize Picks. But because we're up in Pennsylvania, I'm going to be betting all of mine on the sports books this week. So, if we're talking through exposure, it's going to be with the juice involved. It's going to be a little bit different than maybe what you're used to seeing here, but still all very usable for those kind of sites. And we're really going to deep dive the conditions first off. So first thing I'll say is smash the like button if you guys haven't already. Also say hi in the live chat and hit me up with any specific questions or bets that you guys got for me down below. So that can be, things on Underdog or Prize Picks that you want me to give you my thoughts on. It could be betting strategy in general. Love those sort of questions on this kind of live stream, or even just my exposure or matchup thoughts on any specific things that you want me to break down. But other than that, that's all I've got. A little bit water. Cheers to you out there. We got Jack with a question about some round one leader bets, which I'll get to in a second. We got Joseph X Factor there as well. And yeah, back in my old hood. It's a great time every time I get up here in Pennsylvania. And it's been a long time coming. Haven't been here in quite some time. So definitely stoked to be about it. Jack, with your question, I'm going to hold off until after we go through the course conditions, just so that I can do this off the bat. So I can say, hey, if you want the weather take and the golf course take, go back to the beginning of the stream. But we will get to that question. First off, with the weather angle, it looks pretty ideal for tomorrow. But when you have perfect conditions around Oakmont, scoring average is still going to be well over par. In fact, I would guess around 2.5, 3 strokes over par, especially after walking the golf course and seeing what it has to offer today. It's not anything that was, out of the ordinary for an Oakmont Country Club. It's just that it has everything to defend it. It's got 5-inch rough. It's got greens that are running lightning fast and really tight fairways too. So it's not even just that the rough is long and you have to be accurate. It's even hard to accomplish that sort of a feat. So I think even with what looks to be perfect conditions for Thursday, winds that are sub 6 miles an hour, temperatures that are mild, hot enough for the ball to travel, but not too hot where these players are going to be exhausted or fatigued at any point. Even with that, 2.5, 3 over par scoring average. So don't get too excited when you look at this sort of forecast. We can go to the HRDPS and it looks almost the exact same. In fact, maybe even a little bit calmer than what you had in the HRRR. This NAM forecast also very similar to the first two, except in this NAM, it's a little bit cloudier than what you had in those first two forecasts. So I would say the weather not going to be a real big impact. Maybe the morning plays slightly easier than the afternoon. That was kind of the take I gave on the fantasy stream before, just because it was getting firmer and faster as the day went on out there. I got there around 11. I left around 3. So I saw about 4 hours throughout the day. And by the time I was leaving, balls were traveling an extra 3 to 4 feet on some of the greens. And I mean when the iron shots were coming in. So I would expect a similar effect tomorrow, maybe not as pronounced during the practice rounds, but these guys going off in the earlier parts of I didn't even get to see the guys going off at 6, 7. It could have been an even bigger difference than what I noticed on the golf course myself. I do think that if either side is going to play a half a stroke easier, it would be the guys that are going off early. And when we take a look at the averages from 2016, they'll give us a good sense for the golf course. You can see, I think it's going to play a little bit easier than what we had in 2016, at least for round number 1, without a whole bunch of wind out there. Birdie average probably going to go up a bit too. I think it's going to go up to at least 2.55, 2.6 per round. Bogey average is probably going to go down a little bit as well, maybe to like 4.8, 4.9 per round. But as you can tell by those numbers that I just cited, you're not talking about drastic changes. Even with almost perfect conditions at this golf course, it is still going to play harder than almost every other track will on the PGA Tour. So don't think that it's going to be a birdie fest or that you're going to see a first round leader at like -7, -8. Somebody'd have to go full Johnny Miller to shoot a 63 and post that kind of score. And there's a reason why using the word pulling a Johnny Miller is a verb in the world of golf. And if you don't know the story, he shot 63 around here, bogey-free 63. That is just unheard of for anyone in the world of golf. And I think the scoring average that day was like +4, and it was on Sunday. You're going to see that like once in a lifetime around this sort of a golf course. And if somebody does it this week, they're going to be pretty hard to beat as well. So fairway average, I think is also probably going to go down a bit. I wasn't there in 2016, so I can't tell you if the fairway lines are tighter. I will say, though, that they looked really tight off the tee. And, if the average was 8.33 that year, I think it might go down a little bit. Again, I can't confirm whether they narrowed them or not, but they definitely looked like they were hard targets to hit. And then the green average, this one I was kind of split on before I got to the golf course. I thought the green average might go up a little bit because of the rain they got the Monday and Tuesday, and then I got to the golf course today, and I realized that is all full of crap. That rain that was there Monday, Tuesday is going to have a slight effect on this golf course, but the reason why people were missing greens was because they were missing fairways. Every single missed fairway. I didn't see one person hit a green in regulation after missing the fairway, and I didn't see everyone on the golf course. I only had a small sample size at my disposal, but it was probably 0 for 50 of players going for the green out of that super long rough. And a lot of times it wasn't long irons that they were hitting into the greens. Sometimes it was 100 to 100-yard wedge shots that they couldn't even get onto the surface. So I think that green average is going to stay the same, is kind of what I'm expecting, probably about 11, but I think there's a chance it goes to below 11 per round. So we'll have to see. And by the way, it's worth noting that these bottom two averages here are only for the guys that made the cut in 2016. So I used a website that only had that data available. If you try to look up the 2016 data, you'll see that there's not a lot of it published, and a lot of it that's published has different numbers. But the site that I was able to use had them all in raw form. It had every player and listed per round in each category. A lot of these other sites are kind of just like throwing numbers out there. So I chose to just use the raw data of the guys that made the cut. And that website, for whatever reason, they didn't track the guys that missed the cut, but they did track all 4 rounds for the guys that did make it to the weekend. So maybe these numbers are a little bit lower too because it was only the guys that made the cut. But I also think conditions aren't going to be that advantageous as well. So, fairway average might actually go down to like 8 per round just because of the lower quality of player. Green regulation rate, I think for round 1, if I had to put a number on it, like 10.5 per round, like I think it's going to go down rather significantly compared to the number that you see there. So as you can probably tell, I'm still playing a lot of fades for round number 1. However, for the first pieces of exposure that I took, and I still feel really good about this exposure, I took some unders on strokes for elite tier players. So the way that I'm approaching this board for round 1 and what we'll talk through here in this live stream is that I think if you're going to do anything for positive stance plays, it's your elite tier guys that are at 73.5. Like I got Cantlay, I got Lowry at 73.5 strokes, and I got a lot of other guys that are now lower on some of the other prop sites. You can't always get them at the 73.5 now, but my idea was elite tier players to match last year's average. Again, 3 over par was what it was in 2016. That feels reasonable, right? Even if this is a brutally difficult golf course, and I can confirm it, it is super hard. I'm still okay taking those guys to shoot +3 or better. Like there's a line where it starts to get, these guys are priced too high. And I think it's gone over that line with those elite tier players. However, and it's a big however, on specific stats like fairways and greens, I don't think that they've moved it enough. In fact, I think that they have overestimated the field when it comes to fairways hit and greens hit. So I have all fades for fairways and greens. I have like 4 or 5 guys I've taken for unders on fairways. I've taken a bunch of unders on greens regulation. Those are the ones I took on Draftkings Sportsbook. And then some unders on strokes, or what I took on sleeper. And then I did go with a few birdie or better overs too. Those were on Draftkings. Just like the strokes lines for elite tier players, I could see guys making 3+ birdies. And just to go back to the averages, like you can see here, there was 2.4 in 2016. By the way, these top 3, it was only the bottom 2 that it was for guys that made the cut. The top 3 categories are for the entire field. Entire field had a 2.4 birdie average. Conditions are going to be as good as they're going to get all week tomorrow, and it's before the cut line, so they're not going to make the pins as hard as they possibly can. I have a hard time thinking the average for the field is less than 2.5. I think it's going to be 2.65, 2.75 potentially in round number 1, if not close to 3. I think that's within a range of outcomes too. If it gets to a 3 birdie average, then book it. I mean, almost the entire board is all over value. I would say, and especially like your elite tier players. But even if it is only like 2.65 to 2.75 for a birdie average tomorrow, and I'll talk about why I think it's going to go up too. It's not even just the fact that it's playing like to lower winds. It's also the fact that you have 2 drivable par 4s. Technology's better. People hit the ball further at this point. They're going to be able to get it close to that green complex. All of that is why I think that the average goes up to 2.65, 2.75 per round. And okay, let me stop sharing this so I can actually log into my Draftkings guy. You guys can see I had a 2-factor authentication that I forget. I guess I forgot to put through before. Let's see if I don't know if it's still going to be available because I've waited so long to get to it. If not, I guess I'll have to send a new one. Yeah, okay, it's a resend the code. It's embarrassing. Embarrassing that I didn't do that before going on the live stream here. My bad, guys. But what you'll see when we take a look at this board is that like they have guys juiced under at 2.5 birdies that are some of the better players in the field. And I just vehemently disagree with that, especially because the average was like 2.5 last season or last time they were at this course, 2016. And like Tommy Fleetwood, for example. So let's just bring up Fleetwood to start. He's like plus 10. I can't even type his name right. Yeah, plus 105 for his over at 2.5. Like that feels like a mistake for round number one. So we'll talk through a few other props here in a second, but that is from the conditions angle. Let's see. So can I pick your brain about what I look for in round one leader bets? You look for upside, Jack. So you can look for round one scoring. That's a data point that I tend to use. But if you want to look at databases that tell you like when guys gain over 1, 2, 3 shots gained to the field, what you're really looking for, Jack, are guys that gain over 3, 4 shots gained to the field, more than a lot of the guys around them. And some of those players, maybe they lose 2 or 3 shots gained to the field, a little bit more than most players on tour, but they're capable of gaining those 3, 4 shots gained at the same time. So that's mostly what you're looking for, but you might want to look at that round one historical too. Thoughts on Tony Finau? So he's a decent course fit. He plays well at harder golf courses. Maybe it's because he's not the best putter, but he's like a 6 out of 10, I'd say. Like I kind of like him this week, Bill, but he's definitely not my favorite play. What's going on, Luke? I said, hey, how's it going? It's fantastic. Can't wait to hear my predictions on the scoring average. Yeah, I've got it 2.5 over par, just to give you an idea. And he said, props seem sharp and tough for you to find value. Yeah, maybe tough now, Luke, but after you get the averages and you see play tomorrow, there's probably going to be a lot of value to attack. We're able to follow your boy Brooksy during the practice rounds. I was not. I didn't see him on the course at all. He said, if so, how did he look? So I didn't see him out there whatsoever. I didn't see Rory out there either. So, you're only going to get to see so much of the field because they're not out there the entire day. And he said there was a rumor saying that he was walking around grimacing last week. Yeah, I'm still playing him. Like he's going to be unowned. Some of that stuff kind of gets made up by players to kind of juice themselves up for an event. It's maybe an unfortunate rumor, but I'm not going to worry about it that much. Of course, Joseph. He said, thanks for Burns over Clanton last week and one and done. You got 6.6K left for the final spot. And of course, Ron, yeah, Burns was a good play last week. Wish he would have won, of course, but solid play nonetheless. Then he said, thoughts for McCarthy or Young? I thought it was McCarthy. Sorry, you mean McCarthy. I would go McCarthy between those two. He's lower owned than Cam Young. I think accuracy is more important than distance, so I would favor him anyways. And $6,600, there's a lot of studs down there that are getting ownership. Denny is not one of those guys who's super chalky. Of course, Jack, you said you're considering Connors or Pendrith for a round one bet, but you feel like Pendrith has the better upside. I would agree on that. Pendrith does have a little bit more volatility to his game. Somebody that will gain 3-4 strokes, but then lose those same strokes to the field. Corey Connors kills you with kindness, I say, right? He's a consistency first kind of player. He shoots -1, -2 regularly on the PGA Tour. That's not really what you want for those round one leader bets. So good question before. And yeah, I would lean that direction as well. He said, agreed. You already locked in a small outright bet on him. He's 80-1. On Rivers Casino here. So I'm considering doing it myself. I know the odds on Draftkings Sportsbook that we have up right now aren't as favorable in Brooksy. In fact, let me see where they're hanging his number at this point. I think he's being a little bit disrespected, but he's only 60-1 on Draftkings. I'm gonna have to see if I have to get myself over to the casino and bet that, because that feels like it's just a ridiculous line. Yeah, you're saying that's insane. I saw a book that had him at 100-1, but it was a promo bet, so you can only put like $5 on them or something. So it wasn't like anything you can actually take advantage of. But yeah, if they hung 100-1 on them before play started, I would make that a rather sizable bet. Like, and sure, it's 100-1 long shot. It's not going to hit very often, but when lines get that disrespectful and they tote the line of just not making any sense, that's when you have to load up on the units a little bit. Not to say that's going to hit every time, but you want to take advantage of value where it is. Hoyven's coming in as the top ranked amateur. You think it could translate at a tough course? Or do I think, as I guess what you're getting at there? That's a tough thing for me, Palmer. On the golf course today, I was watching the range. Some old guy next to me pointed at Jackson Koiven. He said, who's that over there? And I said, That's your world top 5 player in a couple years. That's what I said about him. And I mean that. Jackson Quaven is that sort of player. He won all the awards on the NCAA circuit. Only other players to completely sweep the awards, or I believe Jack Nicklaus, Tiger, and one other player that was able to accomplish that. It's very rare that somebody is as highly touted as Quaven. I'm not sure I would get there yet. He's still very small. He looks like a kid. You saw him on the range. He looked like an amateur, like one of the players' sons that snuck onto the range. But when you see him hit the golf ball, then you realize who you're dealing with. So I think he's going to be very good in a year or two. I'm just not sure he's there quite yet. And he said everyone seems to hate DJ and Brooks. It's because they're on Live, man. Everyone hates the Live guys because they're terrible people for making all that money. I just think the people that hate them are jealous that they're making more money. They're able to play less golf. It is screwing up the sport. So I guess that's part of the hate, right? The fields all now suck for a lot of these lower tier events. But I think there's a lot of jealousy involved with the hate of those two players. And it probably has to do with like the rest of their life too. They've got a pretty good gig going on. They're rich, they've got hot wives, and they get to play on the Live Tour. That sounds like a lot of fun. We said, with the expected winning score about even, that's about where I have it myself too. Is there any advantage to fading Scotty and going with mid-level golfers? I actually have it going the other way on that, Harish. And I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm going to end up being right on this. There's obviously a lot of volatility, risk at a golf course like this. But when conditions get super tough, usually the cream rises to the top. That's why major championships make conditions as hard as they typically do. So I have a different take on it, but if that's your narrative, you can go with it. This isn't an Airbnb, actually. It's a hotel. If I put this over here, I don't know if you can see it, but we're in Oakland. That's where University of Pittsburgh is, by the way. If you guys don't know. He said, saw I was watching some of the players at the range. Riley was struggling. Yes, man. So I mentioned on the DFS stream, and I was like, oh, anytime I talk crap about a player, they end up smashing the next week. But he was sitting on the range with his instructor doing his backswing for him. It was kind of like, you know, the tennis instructor that gets behind the woman or whatever, like the stereotypical thing, and starts like doing their swing for him. It's what he was doing with Davis Riley. He was doing his backswing for him in a very awkward fashion. And I don't know, I was just like looking around to the people around me. I was like, dude, if he's searching that much on the range before Oakmont, oh boy. And the guy around me was like, oh, what do you think he shoots? I go, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but 80 plus maybe, right? If you're that lost on the range before, again, I hope I'm reverse mushing him. I hope it's not as bad as what it looked like on the range, but that's not what you want to see the Wednesday before a major from anyone. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're world number one. I don't want to see you on the range with your instructor having to have him put you into positions. So yeah, he was one of the players that didn't look that good, but there were a bunch, man. Like, I don't want to single him out in particular. There were a bunch of guys that I kind of immediately crossed off as soon as I saw them grinding a little bit too hard. And on the flip side, I mentioned this on the DFS live stream as well. By the way, that's on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. If you guys haven't already checked that out, I do live streams over there from the fantasy side of things. I mentioned that I was looking for guys that were happy on the golf course, that were smiling, that were joking, that were able to take on Oakmont and not look like they had just gone through a war. Because there were players, just like the guys that were grinding that I kind of crossed off, that I walked around the golf course that looked like they were having temper tantrums, that I immediately went to my list and crossed them off. And I'm not going to play them this week. Riley, you know, his head looked like it was on right. He wasn't mad or anything, but there were guys that I crossed off for that exact reason too. Did I see Michael Kim dropped the pin locations? No, but dude, that's awesome. I didn't see the pin locations. So now that we have them, that's going to be sick. Let's go through those here in a second, Bill. Denny, too. I like him as well. He said, here's an interesting stat for the U.S. Open. Since 2009, 12 of the last 16 winners have never won a major. That's surprising to me, but I'm going to assume that's correct because, I mean, you gave it to us, but wow, yeah, that's very surprising to me. I would not have guessed that. So, any thoughts on Berger this week? You see, coming in off a really bad week. I like him at low ownership. I only like him as a GPP pivot, though. He's a grinder. He hits fairways. He's got his head on straight. He's somebody that is mentally strong, unlike a lot of other players. Definitely give me some Berger at this course. And yeah, dude, Rivers book. Hey, they haven't moved it all week yet, Joseph, so I think I'm good. I don't think they're going to move it on me too quick. All right, let's talk through a few other props that I want to point out here. Again, any other questions we can go through, but I do want to talk about how I'm attacking this sort of slate. So I can't bring up Sleeper here because obviously in PA, they block you from looking at the board. But if they have elite tier guys like Lowry, Cantlay, Like any of the guys that are at 72.5 on these other sports books, if they have them at 73.5 on Sleeper, I like them for unders. I think +3 is the line of like where I'll take positive stance plays. And like I wouldn't do it on like a Spawn or a Taylor Pendrith. Like, no, thank you. Like not even on like a Hideki Matsuyama, but a player that I did it with, in fact, is in my exposure at this point. And I posted on my Patreon page, which by the way, guys, if you guys want every single bet as I get to them, you guys can find that on my Patreon page as per usual. You guys can find that in the description of this video. But Ludwig Gobert was at 73.5 and even money. Right? So like that's an under I would take. If we just go through a few of the other ones I was able to mix in. So Shane Lowry, right? He's at 72.5. I got him for 73.5 for an under. Patrick Cantlay, same thing, down an entire stroke lower. Because of the way Sleeper works and how bump heavy they are, there's a good chance that you can find some of those guys at that number. Again, I can't check the exact board myself, but if you can, I think that if you can find a two leg for that at over 2.7x, I think that's a fantastic play for round number one. And my Patreon page, I think I posted 3 slips where I had that. It was a few of those guys we talked about. Also, Scotty at 71.5. So I'm taking Scotty to shoot +1 or better. I think that's pretty reasonable for world number one. You can see he's also an entire stroke lower. You can find that kind of value. I think it makes a whole lot of sense. But the other props I want to point out, like this Tommy Fleetwood one here, and then I also want to find the Bryson over I took. So I took Bryson over at this +125. If you play these on Underdog, I think they're at this exact number, but both of them have a multiplier towards the over. You should be able to get well over a 3x payout because of the multipliers on both. And I know we were mentioning the averages before, but if I think it's 2.75 for a birdie average, 2.65, Fleetwood should not be plus money for the over. I mean, that would make no sense if that's going to be the case. And even guys like Bryson, if it's going to be like a 2.65 or 2.75 birdie average, he averages like a birdie gained per round on the Live Tour. And it's a major championship field, so he's not going to gain as many. But let's give him like 0.75 birdies a better gain to the field. If it's a 2.75 average, that's 3.5 for his projection. So I think at worst, he should be about even money at this number. And +125 is pretty juicy value when you're taking a 50-50 prop, right? And I'll put 50-50 in quotes because they're never actually 50-50 prospects. But, when you're taking an over-under, that's essentially the game that we're playing. And you're getting that +125 odds. That was something that I was willing to mix in over there. So those are a few overs on birdies that I think make sense. But I also mentioned some of the fades that I was considering. So we'll go through a few over here. So the first one we're going to do, let's go with the JJ Spawn. I was thinking about which one to give you guys, but we'll go with the JJ Spawn under on 11.5 greens. He's -110 for the under, so about even money. I think he's on Underdog Prize Picks at this number, so you can obviously play him on those sites if you have access to it this week. I do not, but he's the kind of player that if I think the average is going to be like 10.5 per round, that would be an obvious undervalue. And it's not like he's a terrible green and reg player. He's not. Right? He's in the top 50 on tour this year. However, though, over the last month or so, his form has fallen off a cliff. He's the kind of player that's been losing off the tee. Approach play hasn't been anywhere near what it was to start 2025. And Tiger Woods said it in his on his Instagram today. He put out a little bit of an idea of how Oakmont's going to play. And he said shorter players are going to really struggle to hit greens because of the height coming into the greens. Having height, having high apex height is massive around this sort of golf course. And JJ Spawn doesn't have that kind of aspect to him. So that's why I took him for the even money under at 11.5. And, it's not really a diss on JJ Spawn, but like he's like an average iron player in this field, which it's a major championship field. Like it's not meant to be a diss at all. Like I love JJ. I play him a lot more than everyone else does on the PGA Tour for positive stance plays, but he's getting way too much credit here, in my opinion. Like they've got him at well over what I think the field average is going to be. And like I said, I think he's about a field average player. So that's an example of an under on greens that I took. And then I'm going to give you guys my favorite in every category. So we'll go with the Tommy Fleetwood one as my favorite, just because I think he should be closer to 3 for a projection. We'll take JJ Spawn as our favorite for the under on greens. And then with fairways hit, I also bet a few of these. We'll go with the Rory McIlroy under on fairways. It is -150 juiced, so there is a lot of steam in this direction. But from what I heard, I didn't get to see him today, so I got to base my judgment on other people that were following him. He's lost off the tee. Guy was not hitting any fairways. He's changed driver 3 times in the last month. That doesn't scream a lot of confidence to me. And I think the average for the field is going to be about 8 per round. I think it's going to go down a little bit. because it's again, harder field, I think tighter fairways, at least based on what I was seeing, maybe slightly tighter fairways. Minus 150 juice I thought was fair to eat on somebody that ranks outside the top 160 on tour when it comes to driving accuracy. And just to show you the exact number, again, I've done all this research. That's why we're not going through a lot of the stats here together, because I've already done it beforehand, so we don't necessarily have to. But number 173 on tour when it comes to hitting fairways. So if the average is going to be like 8 per round, obviously somebody that's number 170 in the category would have to project under that sort of a number. So that's another prop that I mixed in. And then I know we mentioned these strokes ones before. I'm not sure I'd really enter anything on this current board, but if you have access to a site like Sleeper, right, these are the kind of props to the right over here, these 4 we went through. You can add on the other birdie prop with Bryson, of course. Those 4 you could take on a site like Underdog Prize Picks for decent payouts. The ones on Sleeper, though, perhaps maybe the best value attackable are the strokes lines that you can probably find at 73.5. So if you're on the pick'em sites, that's where I would put most of my exposure in. If you don't have access to a Sleeper, then these more traditional props could be a pretty good way to go about it as well. But like I was saying before, guys, every single piece of exposure that I'm taking can be found on my Patreon page. So make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already. Again, link down below to it. Let's go through the 3 balls. So we're going to bring up those next. Haven't had a chance to actually go through those yet. I was more so focusing on the golf course and getting ready for some of my exposure from the DFS side. So was putting a little bit more of my emphasis there. Let's see. Let's go through some matchups to see if we can find some value. And I'm always a big fan of finding long shots. So you're not going to see me playing anyone at close to even money. But if I can find somebody I think has a decent chance at like plus 170, plus 160 or more, we could potentially think about adding it. Let's see. Harris English plus 200. That kind of surprises me, especially with how chalky he is this week. I'm not as big a Harris English guy, but if you're somebody that's playing a lot of Harris English in DFS, you'd probably want to play that plus 200 that's being given to you. Let's see who else is on here. Don't think there's anything drastically wrong there. Rory being plus 100 is a little bit interesting, especially with Lowry having that kind of course history. But if this was like plus 170 or more, I would be a for sure buyer there. We'll leave it in the shopping cart at the very least. Siwoo plus 170. Like, I think Cantlay should be the favorite, but plus 120, I'm never going to play that for a 3-ball. But Lukey Glover, somebody that's got experience. He's played at Oakmont before, who can hit fairways, who can, I mean, the putting is going to be horrendous for Lucas, but like plus 245 doesn't seem like out of reason. Akshay, it's not good enough odds, but like I would lean Akshay on that sort of a 3-ball there. What else do we have? Cam Smith, Harmon, Phil. God, golly, Phil. I'm not against Brian Harmon here. I mean, I hate to cross off Phil. I'm playing Phil in fantasy this week. I hope he proves me wrong. At super low ownership in GPPs, that'd be pretty nice on Phil Mickelson. But like out of these 3, Cam Smith, not the best player at courses that have this long rough. Phil was struggling out there today. I'm not against Brian Harmon at plus 155. Actually, I don't think that's the worst bet. But let's keep trying to find value and see if we can find like our favorite 2 or 3 to take for a bet. Fox should be the favorite, but I definitely wouldn't play him at plus 130. There's no way. This feels like a little bit of a pillow fight here between Perez, Bridgman, and Shank. I'm not sure Shank should be the whole way there at plus 260. I know he's not playing as good of golf as he did a few years ago, but this is a golf course where you're going to see carnage. I think you're going to see some guys really surprise people. I'm not against this JT at plus 130. If Brooks is as broken as people are saying and maybe injured, right? Obviously, there's some rumors out about that. I'm not going to bet a plus 130 very often for a 3-ball, but that one is slightly tempting just because, like, I don't want to completely dismiss Minwoo, but Minwoo doesn't seem like the best course fit around here. Look at the very similar group here between Henley, Taylor, and Bazanhut. 3 more positional players off the tee. With Nick Taylor's form, I don't know if it's completely bettable, but that's at least in consideration. A Jordan Spieth at plus 200 is definitely within reason too. Golly, I've got to be careful with this board. We've got a bunch in there already. I guess we're going to find our favorites after we go through this, but I think there's a few, like Patrick Reed plus 185. I'm not against that one. And just remember the course fit here is very well balanced. So if you guys didn't already see the DFS live stream, I already did a full deep dive on exactly what I'm looking for, what I saw on the golf course. Don't want to completely have to reiterate what I was saying there before, but around the green is a lot more important than I think a lot of people are giving it credit for. So that's why guys like Jordan Spieth, Patrick Reed really make sense around here, in my opinion. Let's see. Berger plus 180. I mean, he is in a group against Neiman, though. It's kind of tough. I do really, really like him this week, though. Leishman plus 150 is pretty decent. Oh, boy. I've got a lot of props here that I like. This is, I guess, a good problem to have. I even like Matthew Jordan at this plus 170. So let's get the players out of here that aren't good at short game. So Matthew Jordan, I don't want to call him a bad short game player, but maybe not the best. Nick Taylor doesn't have the best short game. JT definitely does. Brian Harmon definitely does. And then same thing with Shane Lowry. I mean, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. I like them all, though. I have to see exactly what kind of odds I can get on Hard Rock right now. But sorry, actually, I can't play on Hard Rock. I can play on DraftKings. So you guys can see the muscle memory just kicked in right there. I was like, okay, let's see what we can get on Hard Rock. Then, like, I'm down there in Florida or something. I can play on DraftKings because I'm up here in PA right now. So you know what? Put $50 on. Okay, we're not going to play them as a parlay, but let's stake them all singles for $50. I think that would make sense, right? So it's $500. Payout's going to be a little bit over $1,200 total if they all hit. Yeah, they're not going to all hit. So let's not count on that one happening. And I guess it's got to check my location and let us go. And there we go. Oh my God, I just entered those top ones again. Okay. Well, I guess I get some extra exposure to those top 3 bets, huh? By the way, the reason why I'm a little bit annoyed by that is we have those ones in the shopping cart that I was showing you guys that I've already entered. The unders on fairways and greens, also the over on Tommy Fleetwood birdies. I already had all my exposure in on those 3. So that's why I didn't necessarily want to do that. But yeah, I guess it's even more exposure on those 3 props towards the bottom. But all of those matchups that I was showing you guys before, actually, what is it? 4? Sorry, I guess it was those 3. It was those 3 matchups that we already took before. Like all those quite a bit too. So for all of those, you guys can find those on my Discord channel. That's where I'm going to be posting all the 3 balls and matchups that I'm taking throughout the weekend. But a lot of golf to come, a lot of content to come over the weekend as well. On top of what you guys saw here for round number 1, and of course the content throughout the entire week, rounds 2 through 4, we're going to be doing the same exact thing. So if you guys enjoyed this content, felt like you learned a little bit of something out there for Friday, go ahead, smash the like button, and also subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content when it goes live. I'm not sure exactly on the times quite yet. It does kind of have to go around the travel schedule a bit, but for rounds 2 through 4, there'll be showdown live streams on the Ship It Nation YouTube channel. Obviously, check out that YouTube if you guys haven't already. And over here is where the prop and betting side is going to be touched on the entire weekend. So not just heading into the week, but unlike a lot of the other channels out there, a lot of the other content creators that do golf stuff, I don't leave you hanging after the first day, right? You have all that exposure for Friday through Sunday to attack, whether it's prop betting, whether it's matchups, 3-ball markets that everyone likes playing, showdown for fantasy. That's one of the best slates that you can play when it comes to playing fantasy golf. That's why we keep you covered for rounds 2 through 4. And I think that's what separates my channel from a lot of other ones out there is that, again, the content continues the entire golf tournament. And even when I'm on site, like you have here for a week like this, even up here in Pittsburgh, you can see with the alternate setup, not quite the mic that we're used to either. We make it happen. The show goes on even when we're on the road, and hopefully the profit can continue going on that way as well. But that's all I've got for the round 1 live stream, and going to cut it off a little bit short so I can enjoy my night here in Pittsburgh and get ready for all the festivities starting tomorrow. But any last second questions that we'll touch on there in the chat. So if you have any, I guess you can throw them down last second now if you guys have them. But let's kill this week, right? It's a major championship, one to take advantage of, one to have a good time with. And that's certainly what we're going to do up here. And I think round 1 will be a good one to get our data from. We talked about these averages. You mentioned the weather, trying to get our best idea of what's actually going to happen. The best part about golf, and especially about golf betting for props, is that we get the data to work with. It's kind of like if you have the first quarter of an NFL game, you're able to see exactly what happened for the first 15 minutes and then adjust for the rest of the game. It's kind of what you get in golf. And it's whether it's for fantasy, you can use the round 1 stats to your advantage for rounds 2 and 3. And for the prop side too, we're going to get to see exactly how this golf course plays. And if you come back for the rounds 2 through 4 streams, you'll see averages for every single round on here. And we can talk about how the weather will impact that as well for Friday through Sunday. But that's all, guys. Best of luck. As I said before, thank you guys for showing the love to the content as you guys always do. And let's get through any of these last second questions. You agree that it feels like a hard course narrative is getting a little bit out of hand, probably inherent value on the overs on birdies? Totally agree with that, especially for like elite tier players. My unit size is typically $200 for 2-man slips, but matchups a little bit smaller. It's not really a market that I specialize on. It's more so the pick'em stuff that we talk up here in the live streams. But I'd say anywhere between $100 to $200 or what most of my bets are. Obviously depends on the market. For Scotty Scheffler this week, I have over $2,000 to win. So it's kind of depends on what you're talking about too. Neiman, Rahm, Aubert are 3 of your picks. You said not first non-Scotty guys to do well. Okay, I do like the market without Scotty this week. I considered adding some exposure there, but I didn't end up getting it in there before I got up here to PA. Of course, Joseph, thank you for stopping on by. And yeah, have yourselves a weekend. That's all we've got. I'll see you guys for rounds 2 through 4, and let's have ourselves a week.